Agen lama Michael Jordan, David Falk berkata LeBron mungkin masuk
And players of all time, and went on to say this, quote, I really like LeBron, but I think if Jordan had cherry-picked what teams he wanted to be on and had two other superstars, he would have won 15 championships. It was a bit excessive because LeBron James is one of the top 2 or 3 players in the history of basketball. When people bring up top 5, top 10, now you are getting insulting. There are not 3 players, 4 players in NBA history better than LeBron James.
Buatnya tidak perlu memiliki center yang hebat. Lihat untuk siapa dia menangkan itu. Bill Wennington, Dickie Simpkins, Bill Carter.
If Jordan had picked to assemble a super team, you damn right he would have won about 10 titles, if not more. That's absolutely true. But that's not what Jordan did. And in the end, what LeBron is going to have to live with is the fact that you joined Miami for your first 2 titles. You went back to Cleveland, but there was Kyrie Irving, and the team was compelled to acquire Kevin Love, which obviously helped you. And then when you went to Los Angeles, you obviously got Anthony Davis. And so people are going to look at that and judge him accordingly, as opposed to somebody that stayed with one team, built it, won there first, last, and always, and that's going to be, in some people's eyes anyway, a blemish. I have no problem with that if the comparison is against Jordan. I do have a problem with it if you then try to look at LeBron and try to act like he's barely scratching the top 10 or whatever. LeBron James, in my estimation, is one of the top 2 players in the history of basketball. And if you want to drop him to 3 because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's resume, which is impeccable and beats because he's won on every level, I get that part. But LeBron James to me is top 2 all time. I don't want to hear top 5. Don't want to hear top 10. Let me say at the outset, clearly LeBron James is a great player in any era. You'd be foolish to suggest otherwise. His longevity, his contestants are amazing. I think what makes Michael goes way beyond the court. I think on the court, Michael obviated the center position. Prior to Jordan, you needed the Elijah Aluas, the Ewings, the Kareems, the Bob Laniers, and the way Michael played, he made it unnecessary to have a great center. Look who he won the champions for. Bill Wennington, Dickie Simpkins, Bill Cartwright. And I think that had a huge impact on the game. Secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, I think Michael individually broke down every barrier that existed for professional basketball players, and in particular African-American professional basketball players, to become national marketing brand ambassadors. So the whole generation of Robs and Kobes and Steph Curry having their own shoes and being in commercials did not exist before Michael came in the game. Magic didn't have it, Bird didn't have it, Dr. J didn't have it, Kareem didn't have it, and I think that's a profound impact. I think third, I believe he's the first NBA player to become a billionaire. I believe he's the first NBA player to become a majority owner of an NBA team. And finally, he had, a tremendous impact on fashion. He changed the look of the way the players play with the long shorts. He made bald beautiful. And so I think beyond comparing statistics, who had more points, who averaged more, even who had more championships, I think Michael's impact is extremely broad and deep in what he did to change the game. I don't think any other player in history had a kind of an impact. Here's the truth. Stephen A. Smith wanted it on the record, and David Falk lit the match to make it explosive. Michael Jordan is not merely great. In the GOAT conversation, he is untouchable. Falk, Jordan's longtime agent, said the quiet part out loud. If Michael had cherry-picked super teams the way modern stars do, he would have won 15 championships. Stephen A. doesn't disagree with LeBron's greatness. He calls him top 2 or top 3 all time, but he refuses to entertain the disrespect of dropping LeBron to a casual top 10. The comparison changes when the standard is Jordan. The scale bends under the weight of a career that finished with finality, while others are still chasing closure. So let's put the fireworks first, then rebuild the rest of the case brick by brick. Start with the image no one forgets. Jordan scoring 40 at age 40, not a nostalgia night, a warning shot to time itself. Longevity is impressive, defiance is unforgettable, and behind that moment stands a resume cut from granite. 6 trips to the finals, 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 0 losses. The story didn't drift to an epilogue, it ended with an exclamation mark. LeBron's saga is still being written, historic, sprawling, relentless, but pursuit and closure feel different. And fans can tell David Falk's point stings because it reframes the super team era. Jordan didn't recruit co-headliners, he built a standard and forced everyone around him to rise to it. If he had curated the path, jumped to ready-made cores aligned with 2 other top 10 talents, the championship math changes fast. But the Chicago story was about construction, not convenience. That's why Stephen A. looks at Miami's Big Three, Cleveland with Kyrie and Love, Los Angeles with Anthony Davis, and says fairly that optics matter when we talk legacy. The winning is real for LeBron, the route is curated. With Jordan, the route is the argument. Before we dive deeper, understand the tone of this debate. It isn't anti-LB, it's anti-amnesia. LeBron James is one of the greatest to ever breathe this sport, perhaps second only to Jordan. If you want Kareem at number 1 and LeBron at number 3, fine, but don't pretend the comparison is just a spreadsheet exercise. Jordan's career carries moments that feel heavier because they landed when the margins were thin and the oxygen was scarce. Pressure is where the two legacies separate. Jordan's 40-point eruptions weren't empty fireworks in January, they were verdicts handed down on nights Chicago couldn't afford to lose. He didn't just score, he punished. The league didn't merely guard him, it feared him. Even with 7 fewer seasons, Jordan stacked an avalanche of 40-point games that compresses the longevity equals greatness argument into dust. Fewer years, heavier nights, louder echoes. Then there's identity. Jordan entered the league as a standard, no prolonged phase of finding himself, no recruitment tour to learn how to win. He took the hits, the bad boy pistons, the suffocating 80-second defenses, and turned pain into precision. LeBron's path, still remarkable, was more curated, 8 formative years followed by South Beach to master the blueprint. One legacy feels like a solitary conquest, the other a negotiated coalition. Both are brilliant, only one reads like myth. Impact is the last tiebreaker, and maybe the most unfair. On the court, Jordan changed what a champion could look like. He made the back-to-the-basket behemoth optional. Off the court, he detonated the ceiling for players, especially black athletes, to become global brands. Signature lines, worldwide commercials, the athlete as enterprise model. Those rivers run from Jordan's spring. He altered fashion, marketing, and the expectations of greatness. You can compete with his numbers. Competing with his shadow is harder. Here's why. The discourse keeps looping. Many younger fans never felt Jordan live. They inherit highlight packages, not Sunday knots in the stomach. Stephen A. calls this out because performance and perception are Siamese twins. How a moment felt becomes part of what a moment means. Jordan felt inevitably. He patrolled the league standards. That's why the people who lived through it talk less about and more about inevitability. Stack the cases side by side and the story sharpens. Jordan's prime compressed earthquakes into a shorter span, defensive rules that allowed hand-checking, interior enforcers who could body you off your line. And an era that punished drives with real contact. He didn't just survive, he authored masterpieces. LeBron's scope is breathtaking. Points, assists, rebounds across 2 decades, an Iron Man who adapted through eras and schemes. But the Jordan ledger keeps tossing down trump cards. Fewer seasons, unmatched peak ferocity, a finals record that reads like a verdict, and a mythic sense of timing, knowing to step away and freeze the sculpture while it was flawless. Endings matter. Jordan's story has punctuation, 6 for 6 with 6 finals MVPs. The last image, a championship shot and a walk-off into legend. LeBron's story is epic, Odyssey-long, with new chapters still arriving. Epic and myth can both be great literature. Only one is carved in marble. That's the discomfort at the heart of the GOAT talk. LeBron is still playing to catch a ghost that finished its work. Let's dig into the architecture of both careers. Jordan's Chicago years were a masterclass in construction. He didn't arrive with a ready-made dynasty. He forged one. The Bulls learned his standard or they left. Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, and a rotating cast found roles that orbited the sun of an unbending superstar. There were no shortcuts. Detroit's gauntlet became a rite of passage. Each failure added a layer of armor. By the time Chicago started its run, opponents weren't just facing a team, they were facing a finished idea. LeBron's route looks different because the league looked different. Player mobility exploded. Cap strategy and agency power redrew the map. Miami wasn't a betrayal of competition. It was the new math of ambition. He learned, he won, and he exported that knowledge to Cleveland and Los Angeles. The result is a resume stitched across franchises and eras, proof that greatness can be portable. It's a magnificent counterargument to the notion that loyalty is the only path to legacy. But when the bar is Jordan, portability is graded against permanence. Return to the image that refuses to age. 40. At 40, it matters because of what it says about mind over mileage. Jordan could still summon the old storm on command, and the league felt it. LeBron, to his immense credit, has normalized nightly excellence at an unprecedented age, dozens of 40 pieces deep into his 32nd and 42nd. But the Jordan moment endures like a monument because it felt like a last roar that bent the arc of time for a night. Optics are not everything, but they are something. When your greatest rival is seen as a dynasty builder who stayed and finished what he started, every move you make will be measured against that silhouette. LeBron's greatest triumphs, 2016 particular, glow as bright as anything in modern history. His consistency is a marvel, yet the conversation keeps drifting back to Chicago because closure is a currency statistics can't mint. So let's be precise. This is not a demolition of LeBron James. Stephen A. flat out rejects the idea that LeBron is merely top 5 or top 10. Call him second, call him third behind Kareem if you must, but understand why David Fox's hypothetical hits. If Jordan had curated like today's stars, the ring count might look obscene, and if you change the route without changing the man, what you're really admitting is that the man was the multiplier all along. In the end, greatness is judged by a mix of numbers, moments, roots, and resonance. Jordan's numbers are historic, his moments are cinematic, his root was built, not borrowed, his resonance remade the sport and its business. LeBron's numbers are galactic, his moments are aerodyne, his root optimized the new landscape, his resonance is global and philanthropic. Two uncomparable resumes, until you ask for one name, then finality becomes the tiebreaker. Jordan finished the book, LeBron is still writing. Debate it below. Did Stephen A. Foxty just close the case, or is there one last twist left in LeBron's saga? Subscribe to NBA Showdown for the next chapter in the greatest basketball argument on earth. Context matters because basketball changed under their feet. In Jordan's 82 and early 92, defenders could hand check on the perimeter. Bigs could sit on the rim without defensive 3 seconds, and the paint felt like a courtroom where every drive had to argue for its life. Spacing was cramped, shooting was scarce, and mid-range mastery wasn't a stylistic choice, it was survival. By the time LeBron hit his stride, the geometry of the game had opened. Pace, space, and threes reshaped the map. LeBron solved the new puzzle brilliantly. Bulldozer meets supercomputer, but the equations were not the same. Comparing totals without context is like comparing marathons to mountain climbs. This is why the peak versus longevity question won't die. LeBron's longevity is unmatched availability, as a skill turned into a dynasty of consistency. Jordan's peak was a sustained fever, scoring titles stacked on Defensive Player of the Year caliber defense, a two-way terror that strangled games in the clutch and left coaches with no adjustments left to try. Do you reward the longest sunrise or the brightest noon? Reasonable people can disagree. Stephen A's position is that when the tiebreakers are mythic moments and unblemished endings, peak power wins. Ask the players who face them. The vocabulary changes. With LeBron, opponents talk about solving problems, matchups, help rotations, pick your poison dilemmas. With Jordan, they talk about inevitability and fear, how the building got quiet when he squared his shoulders, how fourth quarters felt smaller, how one mistake tilted the whole night. That's not a stat, it's a sensation. But sensations are why sports matter to people. The super team timeline didn't begin with LeBron, but his choices defined the era. Miami was a thesis on modern power. Stars can align, learn together, and cash wings immediately. Cleveland, too. Zero proved mobility, can right old wrongs. Los Angeles showed the playbook still works with the right big and the right moment. But the bill for all that optimization is paid in perception. Every ring is real, every route is remembered, and when your comparator never left the house he was building, the blueprints get judged as much as the banner count. Even the finals record is a Rorschach test. Jordan's 6-0 is the cleanest silhouette in sports. LeBron's 4, for many, reads like an odyssey through dynasties, the Spurs machine, the Warriors avalanche. Here again, closure whispers in the background. The rings you win are gold, the ones you never lose are granite. Leadership style is the invisible stat. Jordan's leadership was unforgiving, demanding, abrasive, clarifying. He believed pressure revealed character, so he applied it daily. LeBron's leadership is expansive connective tissue that binds locker rooms and elevates basketball IQ. Different tools for different eras, but when the story is told in myths, the hammer is easier to sculpt into legend than the open hand. Off the hardwood, Jordan rewired the business of being an athlete. He didn't invent endorsements, but he turned them into empires. LeBron expanded that frontier, player empowerment and media ventures. It's a relay. Jordan broke the gate, LeBron built new lanes. Iconic moments aren't just highlights, they're punctuation marks in the grammar of legacy. Jordan's catalog is a museum. The shot over Elo shrug in 2092, flu or food poisoning game, last shot in 2098. LeBron's catalog is thunderous. Chase down in 2016, the bubble masterclass, catalog length playoff eviscerations. Why does one list feel heavier? Because of sequence and closure. Jordan's moments layered into trilogies, LeBron's sprawl across sagas, both breathtaking, arranged differently on the shelf. The media climate matters. Jordan's era had newspapers, nightly highlights, and appointment television. Mystique could survive. LeBron's era runs on constant exposure. Every possession litigated on social feeds. Every June turned into a referendum. Durability under that microscope is its own greatness, but mystique erodes under fluorescent lights. It's not fair to LeBron, but it explains part of the emotional math. So why does this debate persist when most insiders still lean Jordan? Because basketball is both math and myth.
LeBron's math is vast and growing. Jordan's myth is perfect and complete. Until someone combines both unassailable totals and unblemished endings, the argument will keep circling the same two names. Stephen A. and David Falk didn't start a fire, they named it. Call LeBron a top 2 all-timer with a resume that may never be matched for scope. Call Kareem the bridge who makes any ranking complicated. Then remember why Jordan keeps winning rooms. Fewer seasons, bigger moments, cleaner finish, deeper shadow. If he had chased convenience, he might have stacked numbers that insult imagination. Falk 15 championships is hyperbole with a heartbeat. But he didn't need to. He built, he conquered, he closed. And somewhere between the statue and the silence after the last shot, the conversation learned the meaning of final. To be fair to LeBron, Steelman the countercase. If greatness is the ability to thrive under any rules on any roster across any era, LeBron is the control variable of basketball. With shooters, he's a drive and kick supernova. With a skilled big, he becomes the most dangerous pick-and-roll conductor alive. He carried ordinary supporting casts deep into springs they had no business seeing. And if you count the 2016 comeback, the 3-1 resurrection against a 73-win machine as a 2-ring achievement in narrative weight, his case tightens. What would it take to flip the room? Another title as the catalyst, not the passenger, would scramble the optics. A final act that ends with authorship, not adjacency, would feel like closure instead of continuation. But every new chapter risks late career losses that harden Jordan's advantage. That's the paradox of the chase. The path to change the story is the same path that can make it immutable. So where do we land? LeBron's career is an epic you measure with maps. Jordan's is a monument you measure with silence. Both are enormous, only one is complete. That's why when Stephen A. says Jordan is untouchable and Falk dares the room with 5 championships, the point isn't to diminish LeBron, it's to explain why the scale keeps tipping the same direction whenever the lights go out and the arguments end. The book of Michael Jordan sits closed on the highest shelf. LeBron sits open, brilliant and unfinished, daring the ending it still seeks.